I'll share the link in the chat so that you all, if you wanted to send it off to folks or keep it for yourself and look at this again later, it definitely comes in handy. So, but I'd like to welcome everyone. I am Judith Susan Rocha, the interim MSW program director, and I welcome you all to one of our many Social Work Month sessions that we've been having through this month. We're very excited to welcome back some of our folks that are outstanding social work professionals out in the field, because we all want to keep learning from each other, right? So we figured that this panel always serves that wonderful purpose of letting folks know what happens after this. um, so with that, I will share the space with my colleague, Crystal Cleggett, and we will move on.
Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Crystal Cleggett. I'm currently the interim BSW Field of Education Director. And so, what I will do is I will read through the bios, and then one of our guests has submitted a video. And so, following that video, um, I will pass it on to Barbara and Emily to go ahead and speak, and then we will proceed with having our guest speakers, and then guests can proceed through with writing questions down, so that way what you have pertinent to our current speakers, we can get them the opportunity to be able to share the space. It looks like we do have some time, but as you all know, once we get to talking, the time goes by really, really, really fast, especially if I'm the one talking, but I'm going to only do the bio, so that should be good this evening. All right, so I'm going to start. So we have Benjamin Anderson, who graduated from NEIU's MSW in 2018. During the program, he completed field placements at UCP Seguin of Greater Chicago in the Foster Care Intake and Licensing Department, as well as at Howard Brown Health and Aging Services. He's been a part of the department doing medical case management and group therapy with LGBTQ seniors. Since October 2018, he has worked as a school-based social worker with pre-K through 8th grade students and their parents at Christopher House. Benjamin completed research on intergenerational social support for older adults and the LGBTQ plus community during graduate school and hopes to begin doctoral research in the near future. Welcome, Benjamin. Sarah Barrera is a bicultural bilingual English-Spanish licensed social worker with a master's degree in social work from Northeastern Illinois University and Women's and Gender Studies from Loyola University, and an undergraduate degree in Spanish. She has extensive experience and specialized training working with women and families through various stages across the lifespan. Sarah has worked in various settings such as healthcare, early childhood, violence prevention, refugee and immigrant services, and community mental health. For most of her career, she has managed a hospital based program for parents and families, providing support and psychoeducation on maternal health, reproductive justice, parent child attachment, and early childhood development. Sarah is also a psychotherapist specializing in perinatal mental health. Welcome, Sarah. Jessica Cruz is a licensed clinical social worker who graduated from Northeastern Illinois University in May of 2015 and went on to pursue her MSW at UIC Jane Addams in the social work program, completing the advanced standing 9-month program. While studying at UIC, she worked part-time at Enlace and a nonprofit community agency in the Little Village community. She worked at Enlace for 4 years doing one-on-one counseling with adolescents and facilitated family groups using a trauma-informed curriculum around family roles. Jessica currently teaches at Malcolm X College. She teaches in the Community Health Worker Certificate Program. She is also providing clinical supervision to 2 teams that have a focus around violence prevention and health prevention work. She is passionate about ensuring everyone she works with that they have an equity-minded lens and provides continued supervision, career coaching, development, and growth to folks who are service providing roles. Welcome, Jessica. Carla Garcia graduated from NEIU's BSW program in May of 2018. During her cohort, she completed her field placement at Metropolitan Family Service. She oversaw the program of community schools in which focused on enrichment and academic activities for after-school programs. She mainly worked with children from grades 3 to 8th grade. Currently, she has worked for Metropolitan Family Services as a case manager, helping clients obtain services and referrals. She plans to complete her MSW to continue working with children and families. She plans on using her knowledge to empower minorities and their communities. Welcome, Carla. Aide Hernandez is a Mexicana who was born and raised in Chicago. She is an alumni from the Social Work and Women and Gender Studies program at Northeastern Illinois University. She obtained her master's in social work with a concentration in leadership and social change from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. She is currently a second-year sociology PhD student at the University of Illinois at Chicago. Her research interests focus on immigration laws and the identity development of Indigenous and Afro-Latino and Latino and Afro-Latinas in Chicago. Welcome, Aide. Barbara Murphy, BS LSW, has a bachelor's in technical science with a focus in human resources. She changed careers later in life, getting her MSW at Northeastern Illinois University in 2020, recently passing the licensing exam for the LSW. She works as a care manager with cohort class members through Lutheran Social Services of Illinois. She is the chapter president of Chicago Autism Eats and a proud volunteer for the Ann and Robert H. Lurie Children's Hospital Parent Lines program. She's Chicago born and she has one special boy, and she's been married for 22 years. Welcome everyone to this evening's group of presentees and alumni. I am going to pass it over to Barbara. Well, let me see, let me click on our video. So then that way we can go ahead and start. Pull this up right away here.
Did you say Barbara?
Actually, I'm gonna start with Jessica's video real quick. And then we will go into Barbara and Emily. I apologize for that. There we go. Pause. And I'm going to share.
Congratulations on almost finishing the semester, and congratulations on Social Work Month. Just want to say that I'm so happy and proud of you all. You are almost done with the semester. I know it probably hasn't been easy, especially during this pandemic, so you should be really proud of yourself for almost finishing. My name is Jessica Cruz. I attended Northeastern. I graduated in 2015. I then went on to UIC Jane Addams to receive my master's in social work, concentration in children and family. I worked in the field for 5 years or so at a not-for-profit in Little Village and also Chicago. Did a lot of school-based counseling work, so didn't work with schools, but I was in schools. Shortly after that, I went on to Malcolm X College, where I now teach the Community Health Work Certificate Program. I teach 2 unique cohorts, the Jumpstart to Jobs Early College, which is composed of seniors throughout Chicago public schools. And then I also teach the Spanish one, the Spanish cohort. So really exciting. I really love it. Community health work is very similar to social work. So I really, really enjoy it. I also have my license in clinical social work. So I do consulting work. I supervise a team in Alumni, Chicago, actually where I used to work at. They do violence prevention work, so I provide supervision to that team. I also provide supervision to health team at Alumni, Chicago as well. So yeah, I've been doing that for, actually just started this year. So I'll tell you a little bit about my experience while I was in Northeastern. I definitely enjoyed it there. It was like family, colleagues, and professors always went out of their way to ensure that we had everything we needed, right? Not only in the classroom setting, but also outside in the classroom setting. While I was at Northeastern, I completed my internship at Golder College Prep, one of the notable high schools. I thought I wanted to do School of Social Work, so that's why I did that. Turns out I didn't want to do it. It was so different from what I had envisioned it to be. The Northeastern prepared me. They prepared me to be there and really take and really focus on the client, really walk with the client through their journey and provide those quality services that we provide as social workers. Actually, when I was at Northeastern, I didn't know if I wanted to go to grad school. Had it not been for Professor Francisco Gaetan, it's no longer there. He was my mentor because I was also a McNair Scholar. And he was the one who said, you need to go. Like, you are prepared. You should really do it. I will be honest, I doubted myself. I wasn't sure if I was smart enough to be in that setting. I applied to a few schools you have to when you're a McNair Scholar, and I got into all of them. I ended up going with UAC Jane Addams because they were the ones who gave me a full ride for my master's program. And I will say, when I was there, I was in my practice class, my research class, and those concepts, the assignments, I felt like they were a refresher of everything that Northeastern had taught me. I knew how to do a lot of the things that they were teaching us. The research was like a science fair project at UAC and here at Northeastern. It was a very intense, rigorous research project. So I was definitely prepared. I'm not sure if Dr. Ramirez is still teaching, but her APA stuck with me. There was still a lot of students in grad school who did not know how to do an APA format paper. She was really strict. It really stuck with me, so I knew how to do APA when I went to grad school. My internship when I was at UIC, I did it at Rush. It was a great experience, but again, I had to learn everything of how to, the communication, assessment, interviews with clients when I was at Northeastern. Luckily, while I was in school, I never had to work. I was privileged, I was blessed in that way that I only had to focus in school, my internships, and raising my daughters. So that was definitely a support that I had, my family, helping with the kids, helping financially. So my main focus was really on school. So I am grateful for that. And I guess some piece of advice that I have for you all is really when they talk about self-care in Northeastern or even in grad school, really practicing that on very early in your career, right? Like really knowing your boundaries and understanding what you can take on, right? And it's okay if you can't take on more or you can't do it, right? You can always ask for help, not thinking that you need to have it all figured out because you don't. If you have the ability to go to grad school when you graduate in Northeastern, I really encourage it. But if you don't, that's okay too, right? Really, I guess for me, like self-care is huge. And they teach you that and you don't really understand it until you're really doing the work and understanding that in order for you to provide for this community or your participants, your clients, you really need to be okay with yourself. So that's all I have for you all. I really wish you all the best and continue finishing the semester strong. And hopefully you all have a great semester. Bye.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that, Professor Cleggett. So we're going to, we have, what is it, about 5 or 6 folks in our panel. And I know at least one person is leaving early, and we actually didn't have a chance to share a bio for Emily Long. So Emily, if you wouldn't mind maybe sharing just a few details about yourself real quick, and then I'm going to ask a couple of questions of you and Barb particularly, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. I'm honored to be here. I miss you all. I think I got to have a run-in with you, Dr. Rocha, like a few weeks ago, and that was like, I think there was a group of us that saw you, and it I don't want to say it's sad to be that like disproportionately excited on a Wednesday night to see like a former professor, but yeah. So right now, I work at an integrated like care place that does dual diagnosis where I'm a therapist. So I work very clinically. I'm called a treatment coordinator. So I also run trauma process groups, and it's people with eating disorders, addiction, mood disorders, trauma related disorders, and complex PTSD. And I think like I knew pretty early on that my passion was going to be to do clinical social work. So I feel like I got really lucky straight out of the gate. Also, my journey had started at Harold Washington when I finally went back to school. And I did my first associates in social work internship at Haymarket Center, which I loved a lot. Like I also knew that I definitely wanted to work in addictions. And then when I came to Northeastern, I worked at a place called SunCloud Health, where I'm at right now. And it was the clinical social work. It's everything I'm doing now. And then my third internship in my master's program was with somatic experiencing, kind of like the idea, and Casey knows this book very well, The Body Keeps the Score, like is like a Bible for me. And it really like through the somatic experiencing got people that carried trauma in their bodies. It was a very powerful experience. So and now I'm back at SunCloud because I like my heart is in the addictions.
Thanks so much, Emily.
Yeah.
So I wanted to say that we were very intentional about inviting folks back, right? Because we wanted to be able to give current students a little lay of the land of different areas, especially since we heard some areas that they wanted information on. So I know a lot of our students typically ask about the LSW and how do you prepare and what do you do, right? And so my reason for bringing on Emily and Barbara, I had actually asked two other folks because there's a whole group of students that have decided to come together as a study group. So I want to leave it open for Barbara and Emily to share a little bit about that experience that they have gone through. As you heard, Barbara in her bio recently passed the exam. So she has, that latest information about this whole process. And then we'll hear from another panelist that had a very recent passing as well. So Barbara and Emily, if you want to give us a little more information about this whole process of coming together as a study group and anything that comes to mind in terms of preparing for the LSW exam.
Yeah. I was going to say my exam's tomorrow at 8 a.m. So I'm like,
we came together. It was a benefit to the pandemic. So we had all graduated online. We had graduated with that virtual graduation, and we all decided to create an event every Tuesday on our Google Meets calendar with our personal calendars and just commit to that every Tuesday night. And we would pop in. We would use Pocket Prep or other tools that we had and kind of go over questions and discuss the answers and the rationale behind those answers, and then just continue to support each other throughout this whole process. There was four or five of us that pop in, and I was the first one to take the exam. I took it about a month ago, and I was nervous, but I also took the practice exam beforehand that you get through the ASWB. Yes, one of them. Yeah, SW, ABSW.
ASWB.
All these acronyms, my world of acronyms. So I took the practice exam and I did really well. And then I was like, I got this. And I took the exam and I passed by 2 points. So I feel like the exam was definitely tough. And I think it was because you have to answer the questions the way you would answer it in the textbook, not in the real world. And also, there's always those two questions, those two answers that it might be, and you're really just using your best judgment. based on what you read in the books. So I was really happy to pass it. And now we continue to meet every Tuesday because Emily is going to take it. And we have 2 other folks that are going to take it. So even though I passed, we're still going to continue to meet and support each other through that process. I think it's important to have a group of people to talk about these things with, and just, it's, you know, it's also good for your self-care, self-esteem. You're not alone, things like that.
And we're like a unique lot. It's like we'll be, because it takes place every Tuesday night. So like we'll be laughing about like, oh, this answer about trauma is so often. I'm like, what other profession out there, what other like student major out there is like people laughing about trauma on a Tuesday night? But like Barb's such the overfunctioner, which I appreciate about her, where it was like even topics like research, some people are made for research, some people are not. I am one of those where I am not. Barb made like a PowerPoint presentation to help us like brush up on understanding like research, because the questions can be pretty like obscure. Yeah, because I don't use research since I've been out in the field, but I can do like the diagnostic side of things. So like Barb was really good at highlighting like the areas where we were struggling, and like pocket prep has been a lifesaver because I can do like 30 questions a day, just like answering any free chance I get. And it's supposed to like mirror that of the actual test. And it also highlights the areas that you need improvement, like certain categories. And that's been like pocket prep has kind of saved the day for me. And I don't know, I kind of look at like in my graduating class, like master's class, there might kind of became chosen family. So it's, I know that we're all going to go on to do the LCSW together. I know that's like part of me and Barb's thinking is like, hey, if we pass this, we'll just keep studying because we have another test coming up.
We'll just keep our Tuesday night for the next 2 years.
Yeah. 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 So it's been really good to be connected. And that self-care piece, well, like, because after we study, we'll like stay around and like talk about how it's been. And we all went into different areas, but just kind of talking about like, there's no lack of work for us.
Yeah.
As social workers, especially right now.
Yeah. It's like our own supervision.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, it sounds like you all are meeting for supervision or like case consultation at this point.
Yeah.
That when you start doing your clinical hours, right? So you might have like a second hour of supervision and consultation. So that's nice. That's a really good way to stay connected, but also continue to learn from each other, right? In the different settings that you're in. So that's
Yeah,
awesome.
and we miss each other.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And I know Emily will have to go after a couple of minutes, but definitely feel free to stick around, Emily, as long as you want. I'm going to hand it over now to my other wonderful colleague that's on the Zoom session today with us, Professor Kim Davidson.
Hi, everyone. So one of the reasons we wanted to pull this panel together is because what's so amazing about our students as they move on is we have students doing so many different things, as you heard through the bios. And one of the things that I always advertise to students about the social work profession is just what a diverse profession it is when it comes to the things that you can do with your degree. Everything from doing clinical practice to community practice to case management, clinical work to teaching and getting your PhD. And so we have a really great panel of folks who have a bunch of different experience, and even a student who I had in my BSW program who took time off to work at her internship. So I really want to hear from all of the students, and I guess what I'm going to be doing is just asking a question, and hopefully everyone will chime in and answer. And and with this, the first question is a very simple question. I'll let you answer it however you want, whatever feels right for you. But it's, what have you done since leaving Northeastern? If you could tell us a little bit about what you've done, and we heard your bios, but also a little bit about kind of what took you on that path, how you made those decisions to do those things. And do I have a volunteer from the panel to go first?
I can start.
Wonderful. Thank you, Barbara.
So like I mentioned earlier, I'm a career changer. So when I was applying for jobs, I think I struggled with highlighting my strengths because I've got these two separate careers, in my lifetime. So I actually went to the NEIU Career Center, and they helped me create a resume that would highlight those points. It was a world of difference from when I graduated. I was sending out this resume and getting very few hits, and when I got the new resume, I started getting calls. So it made it a world of difference, and it was a fresh look at who I was, and it also helped me to realize where my strengths are, because I think I was thinking that maybe I wasn't good enough, or that kind of thinking. So I ended up getting a job at Lutheran Social Services, working with Colbert clients, transitioning into the community. Most of the folks have a serious mental illness or a substance use, and we kind of, create all these supports for them so that when they move into the community, they are successful. And I did that for 10 months. And now within the same company, I'm a care manager. So it's more of a clinical part of it. And it's perfect timing because I just got the LSW. So now I can start focusing on more of that clinical aspect of working with folks with serious mental illness.
Wonderful. Thank you. And can I ask one more question for you? What do you find the most rewarding out of what you're doing right now?
I love the clients. I just love it. I have a client that just loves calling me. And he just calls to, ask how everything's going. And, he really just wants to know how I'm doing on his case. But, I love being able to bring somebody to a better place in their life and just kind of supporting them through that. And, they're just so grateful just to have a place to live. And it's such a basic need. And I think that's what I love most about that.
Great, thank you. All right, who would like to go next? I'm going to go with the first person. Oh.
Yeah. I was looking because Benjamin, I'm like, our last names are kind of AB. Should we go alphabetical?
I know.
But I'm happy to chat. I'm so happy to be in this space again. Dr. Rocha, seeing you again, even seeing your name, Casey, fills me with joy. So I just want to just say that out loud. And I envy Emily. She, I think, left, but knowing that she wanted to do something clinical, sounds like she kind of knew what she was going after. And I didn't. I came to Northeastern a little bit later on in life, and I was kind of on a track working at a hospital, kind of doing program management, and I was really liking it, but kind of unsure what my next move was going to be. And Northeastern was such a great place for me to kind of explore that. And in Casey's classes, I got super excited about policy, kind of more macro stuff. And I'm like, yeah, this is what I'll do. But at the end of it, for my second internship, after kind of really going round and round, I decided to do something. And the other thought I had to do was therapy. And so I had an internship at a community mental health, the Kedzie Center, which was an experience that I adored, loved every minute of. And then I was hired on after I graduated. I graduated in 2020. And I kind of cheated because then I kept my hospital job. COVID had happened, and I felt I was going to do a big shakeup and do something different. And, we all experienced what we experienced. And so I decided to stick with the stability with that job full time, and then just did some side hustle with doing some therapy with community mental health. And really love that. And I still don't have my exact answer of which one. I kind of want to do both. I love leadership program admin stuff, and I also really like clinical. So I continue to do both. And I just recently left community mental health Kedzie Center and joined a practice that focuses on kind of where my real heart is in focusing. So doing therapy and then focusing on perinatal issues. So maternal, the whole gamut. Focus mostly on women and, all kind of experiences through the lifespan, but really kind of focusing on that perinatal period. So yeah, I'm really enjoying that work. I think I will continue to do therapy in some, whether part-time or full-time. I'm still trying to figure out. And yeah, so I think that was in response to your question. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing kind of your journey and figuring out that you like macro and clinical work. We find them both rewarding. So
yeah,
thank you.
yeah, definitely.
All right. And then I will just call on folks in the order that you are on my screen. How about that? Aide?
Hi everyone, my name is Aide. So I graduated from NEIU in 2018 and I applied to master's programs my senior year. So I applied to a few schools out of state and was admitted to a few, but funding was very, very critical in terms of MSW, considering that they're terminal degrees, they're usually not funded. So I was able to get funded at U of I. So I was in their leadership and social change program, which is their macro program. It's fairly new, I would say, across programs, right? A macro is an emerging field in terms of social work because we typically think of social work as being very clinical and direct services. And so I was just at Urbana for a very short time because I was in the advanced standing program. But I did want to highlight some things that I did at Urbana. Sort of relating to Jessica's video in terms of how NEIU prepared me for my MSW program and currently my PhD program. But I was at Urbana for a short amount of time and was thankfully able to get one campus job as a graduate assistant in their program for first-gen students of color. But I also needed another job. And so I applied for a research position in the Social Works Research Center. So it's hubbed inside the School of Social Work at U of I. And at NEIU, we took a statistics class. So we did methods and we learned how to use SPSS. And so I applied to the research assistantship and I highlighted that I knew how to work SPSS because that's one of the things that was sort of highlighted at NEIU in terms of research. And I would say that it was a proud moment for me. And I think NEIU, because people who were applying to this position were already at Urbana from their undergrad degree or from different institutions. And so I think I was ready in terms of doing research and was definitely very proud that I got the opportunity to do research at the center in the School of Social Work. And we did a report for DCFS. So in my MSW program, I did a report on child well-being for 2017 of children in foster care. So that was great in terms of how I was studying to do macro level, but I was also doing research on direct services and doing reports for the state level, which is what I'm mostly interested in, which is macro work. So now I am at UIC in their sociology program. So I am doing a little bit of a transition in fields and it's my second year. And so I am going to be done with coursework this semester. So I'm actually graduating again, sort of virtually. But yeah, I still have a long way to go in terms of my PhD program, but my long-term goals are to stay in academia and teach in sociology, but I'm also really passionate in merging social work and the teaching opportunities that I look forward to in the future.
And Aide, what do you find the most rewarding about teaching?
Yeah, I think what I find most rewarding is just helping students. So because NEIU was such a small school and you were able to build connections with professors and other students, I feel that going to two big schools now, sort of, you get lost in the number of people that are there. And so I think in terms of teaching is just making those connections with students and helping them, whether they want to go into the profession of their field of study or if they want to go to grad school. I think that's what has been really rewarding to me, is just helping first-gen students.
Thank you so much. All right, Ben.
Yeah, so similar to what some others have shared too, I had kind of a diverse background as far as employment went before. I don't think I could say that I had a career at any point. Just a lot of different things. A lot of it related to social service or education. So in some ways for me, it all felt kind of similar. But yeah, part of my motivation for going back and getting my MSW was because the field, I generally liked doing the types of things that social workers do, like the kind of options in that field were appealing to me, and because I could have diverse options that like I pretty much anything within my interest area is something I could do with a Master of Social Work degree. So that's why it was appealing to me, because I didn't know for how long I would be interested in one particular area. And it just provided me lots of opportunities. And even through my grad school experience, that was the case, like providing me different opportunities with that. So I was able to get a graduate assistantship at Northeastern, which was good for me. Having ADHD, it was good to have everything all in one place, except for, of course, my internship. But it's nice to be able to work there and study there. And I worked in a social work office my first year, and I worked in I'm forgetting the name of it, but the tutoring center, that's not what they call it at all. But anyway, the tutoring center at Northeastern my next year as a academic support coach. So it felt like case management for students, like readjusting to college life in some ways. So, and then with my internships, I had a more administrative role with foster care, licensing and intake. And then the following year, I did case management with older LGBTQ adults, and also group therapy with older LGBTQ adults as well too. So just like I was able to get a really diverse experience in grad school. And then coming out of school, I did struggle a bit to find a job. And I think part of it had to do with my resume as well too, trying to like take all these like disparate positions I'd had and make sense of them. And so that was kind of part of the process as well too. And now, of course, I can phrase it in a way that actually, shows that I have that they've all prepared me to do what I'm doing at this point, or prepare me to go forward, because yeah, all of our experience do prepare us for what comes next. So during the summer, I worked with MAPS Corps, which is a unique organization. They work with teenage and young adult youth in Chicago to map community resources in their neighborhood. And that can be used, some of it they sell to Google, just in general. I mean, they map everything in the neighborhood. They go out from door to door and make sure that everything that is in the neighborhood is on Google Maps for one part of it, but also they NowPow is kind of the company they're under as well, and which is a huge database of all the community resources in Chicago. And so that was a really neat experience. And also the program participants also did their own research. Our group did research on, we're assigned a research question by the agency. And so I got to guide a group of young adults that had no college experience at all in doing research as well on their own communities, which was really exciting. And then in the end, I landed at Christopher House. I started in October of 2018. And Christopher House is one of the original settlement houses in Chicago. And so they do a lot of different things. And so again, I have a lot of different experiences with that. So when I initially applied, I applied to be a parent educator, which wasn't even something that used my social work degree. But my supervisor was able to kind of see, what other skills I had and potential had. And so she hired me as a social worker for the preschools. Doing play therapy with preschool students, something I had no experience with at all. But yeah, it's been a really neat experience, and it's, understanding development of children and also educationally, what kind of things they need to prepare for kindergarten and beyond is extremely valuable for anybody in our work. And I've been very grateful for that. But as I was in that role longer too, my experience expanded more and more. I'm always doing therapist. I'm pretty much strictly a therapist. but I started working with elementary students because they have a charter school, and then I have started working with young mothers as well too. So they have a teen and young adult parenting program as well too. So I do therapy with mothers. And then when the pandemic came, you know, doing play therapy with preschoolers was no longer a possibility. And so any kind of interventions needed for preschool students since this past year were interventions that we've addressed through the parents. So I've been able to work with parents a lot more during the pandemic. That's something that works a lot better virtually. Even with elementary students, we've really struggled to engage virtually during this time. And I'm grateful that recently I've been able to get my vaccines because we work in a school, and I'm on site 1 day a week working with elementary students again, and it really is so much easier to engage and connect in that way. So I've appreciated that. But yeah, through not only my personal experiences and my experience with others, especially working at Howard Brown, but even here at Christopher House, I just noticed a real dearth of knowledge and specific interventions available to therapists for any clients with special situations. And so I fell in love with research when I was in grad school and what I was able to do. And I look forward to hopefully I'll be starting a PhD in the fall. During this whole pandemic time, I've been working through this process. I've been accepted to a program, but I'm still looking for funding. For me, again, as I learned in my master's program, I really need to be able to focus full time on it. And so I need to be able to get paid. And that's really hard to do in social work or social sciences or anthropology, whatever it ends up being. But yeah, I've been accepted into a program at a graduate school of theology and religion at the Free University of Amsterdam. And I've been working on trying to get funding for quite a while. And I think I'm getting close to it. Casey has been really helpful for me in that. I had her be one of my supervisors because I wanted to stay really grounded in social work and grounded in making sure that my research is going to be applicable and useful for therapists and for social workers. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now. The research that I hope to carry out is the coming out experiences of LGBTQ people from fundamentalist faith groups in Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, kind of comparing the three. It's a lot, I think, but I hope it's not too much to conquer in 4 years, which is the amount of time I'm allotted to finish the program. And yeah, so it's really exciting for me. It really applies to my own experience, my personal experiences, but also my experiences as a social worker. And so I really look forward to doing that. And I hope it all works out in this fall is the goal.
All right, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
What do you find the most reward out of all of those things that you've done?
Yeah, I mean, and oddly enough that I'm attracted to research, but I really am excited about that. Whatever I'm doing is having an impact in people's lives individually. And that's actually why I'm drawn to the qualitative research as well too. That I can still interact with people on a regular basis. I'm going to be doing interviews and hearing people's stories. And so that's something that works for me. But at the same time, work for change on a macro level. Yeah, that my work will have an impact on as many people's lives, daily lives, as possible.
And I'm sure that focus on qualitative research had nothing to do with Casey.
Oh, no, yeah.
All right, so my next person is Carla. Carla was one of my former students as well, and I have so many BSW students that are going straight in the field and have so many questions about what that path looks like. So can you share a little bit about that?
So for me, I graduated in 2018 from Northeastern with the BSW. Right now, I'm working at Metropolitan Family Services. So I did my internship at Metropolitan Family Services, working for community schools, which focuses on programming for after school enrichment and academic programs. And so basically after I graduated, it took some, and it's funny enough too that how I got that internship too, because I had applied for them since June, or I remember like when classes had ended in the spring, and I didn't get anything, I didn't hear anything back until like 1 week before school started. And then I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to skip a year and to wait till I get an internship. So um, luckily I was able to stick with them. So once I graduated, they had offered me a position there. So it took a little bit of time before the person who I was taking their position left. So I want to say like a month or two, and then I was called in. So they already had told me like apply for the job and everything. And right now I've been doing case management with them. And as Benjamin actually mentioned, he mentioned NowPow. I use that so much, and it's very useful for what I do, giving clients resources, and also just finding more things that are around the community, because like sometimes you don't even, you Google something and it doesn't appear, you don't know what exactly that agency is doing or what they focus on. And I think that that NowPow has it really laid out on how where the agency is and what they do, what insurances they take. So I think that's really helpful for people in the community. And we also had a parenting program that closed unfortunately. So I think that was also helpful, and I've done was doing intake for that as well. Um, and just different things with the community, like right now with the pandemic, providing clients with other resources, or like when we had started like giving people food or masks at the beginning too. We gave masks out. I don't know if they're still doing anything like that, but we have done like helping out with the grants, helping people sign up for the grant money. Uh, I don't know what it was called, like Illinois grant relief for COVID or something like that. And right now I'm just planning on going back to school to do my master's. So it's been a few years since I graduated, and like Benjamin said, it's just mainly due to funding. So I was saving up money to be able to go back to school as well. I don't know if you guys have any other questions, or did I miss anything?
No, that's great. I was going to ask you, so Kyla, now that you are working in the field at the same place where you did your internship, which I just want to say is a huge testament to your hard work at that agency, because it takes a lot to get hired at your internship. What do you find is the most rewarding thing that you've been doing?
I feel the most rewarding is like hearing clients' feedback and saying, "Oh, you guys actually help us." Or I actually had a client, for some reason they called twice and I didn't register them with the same name, or for some reason didn't hear their name correctly. So I called them back and they had said, "Oh, you had called me already. You sent me these places, and this really helped me out, and I was able to get in here." So that's like the things I hear are just people that come in and say you've helped me, and just being able to provide those resources to clients, especially like most people that I work with are minorities or have low income. So just many of those clients don't even know we offer certain services that they qualify for. So just helping them with that, and be letting them know what's in their community.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think that's one round of all of our panelists, right? Okay.
And I'll take a quick break just to share a few comments on the live feed. I didn't realize we were having so many spectators. So Dr. Francisco Losornio says, great journey, Aide. Mary Reynolds says, Aide, thank you for sharing. So cool to hear about your journey. Then she also says, future Dr. Ben Woot. Emma Fine says, Ben, that's a needed bit of knowledge you're trying to grasp. Good wishes that finding comes soon. Mary Reynolds then says, NEIU social work, you all make me so proud and you all look so smart and kind and compassionate and beautiful. So proud of you. And Diana Alejandra says, I probably missed some introductions, but Carla, thank you for sharing. So I'll share a little later again if I see some more, okay?
Great, thank you. So our next question, some of you alluded to this in your first answer, but this was something that students have been asking a lot as they get ready to enter the field in all areas that y'all are in. How has the pandemic impacted your work? And I guess we'll just go in order, the same order that y'all answered last time, if that's okay.
That'd be me. Pandemic, I started the job without meeting anybody, which was really weird. And I was interviewed 2 or 3 times by the company on the phone, didn't even go in and meet them. And they literally told me, just go pick up your laptop and your phone and go home, we'll let you know. So that's what we do. And then I do these Google Meets calls. I've met a few people on, not Google Meets, Teams, use Teams. And, it's kind of crazy because there, like 2 or 3 of the people you become close with when you're in the office. And there's like one person that we call each other every day and chat about work and what's going on and stuff. But, being new in the field too, it was kind of difficult because I think I just wanted to do well. And I felt like it was hard to do in the pandemic, but now that I'm doing it, I'm doing fine. Actually, it's not that bad. I think I'm an introvert.
Thank you. Sarah?
Yeah, it sure has impacted everything, hasn't it? I've discovered my love and appreciation for like sweatpants and certain things that now I just feel really attached to and like really thinking, what can I give up? So I'm 100% remote for everything that I do. So I stayed with my job at the hospital running a parent support program called Healthy Families. And yeah, and we, had like everybody, right, had to reinvent and do home visiting and attend births, like our doula services had to attend births virtually and, all these kind of weird things. But we did it and we learned so much. And I really come out of it thinking really differently about like efficiency and some of the craziness of life and use of time. And so I definitely, I think, I just feel differently. At the beginning, I was doing therapy for the Community Mental Health Center and we went remote and I'm like, oh, telehealth, like this is weird. How do you connect? How do you how do you do this? It doesn't feel right. And like many other people I know, months down the road, I feel differently. I see a lot of I don't see as many of the deficits in terms of like the therapy setting or even other like client interactions. There's also opens up accessibility in really impressive ways. Um, taking out, especially with like thinking of like parents and overburdened, like getting here to there is difficult, parking, traffic, all these things, and you're just taking out a lot of those variables. So it's not the same, right? We're social workers here. It's like, the human presence is not to be undermined in any way. But I'm coming out of it really looking at it differently. And yeah, and so now I think as whatever's next for me, I don't know. I really think telehealth works well, and I think I no longer want to go to an office 5 days a week. I mean, just like certain things, I just don't want to do anymore. And I just feel like this has really kind of opened up some different thinking and possibilities, and thinking of a like work-life balance. It also can be terrible with boundaries when your bedroom is your office or your dining room, all these other things, right? It's like making those rituals we do as we like leave one role and enter another are gone. So it's not like it's perfect, but yeah. So I guess to be succinct, COVID has impacted everything. It completely changed my plans personally, professionally. but I sure think of it differently now than I did, March 16th last year when everything kind of shut down. And I do see, I mean, all of COVID is bad, right? That's all bad. But the adjusting that we've all done, I think, has been interesting, rewarding, learning a lot about ourselves, and maybe like a reprioritizing, thank you, of the things that we kind of value and approaches that we could take. So.
Thank you. Thank you for speaking to some of the opportunities of this time too. I think it's really taught us, hopefully we don't abandon all of the things that we've learned. I think even from the classroom, I've seen some accessibility stuff that's been really powerful about this time, and people able to get therapy that never were accessing therapy before. And so thank you for speaking to that. Aide?
Yes. So since I am still in school, I was only at UIC on campus for a semester and a half before we transitioned to doing online. And so my work, basically, I'm still a full-time course load student. So I had to move everything online, which, as some of you have recently finished your program, know the struggles of learning, e-learning. But also the funding that I receive at UAC is tied to a teaching assistantship. So I TA introductory sociology courses, and that has impacted my work in terms of not only how I'm learning, but also how I'm teaching. And so it has been a lot in terms of also being, I am a TA, but I also feel like a caregiver at times, like the social work in me, right, is making sure that my students are okay. If they've been gone for a couple of days or weeks, it could get concerning because everything is so unpredictable. And so I think the first semester that we were online, it was sort of just, making sure that people were okay physically and mentally. And then the fall semester, the pandemic, being fully online, definitely impacted the way that I'm cultivating my identity as a teacher. And so like being more understanding, and also building those relationships, even though they're virtually, like making sure that that you listen to students. So that's how the pandemic has impacted my work. And so UAC is a pretty big school, so I'm not sure if we will be back in person anytime soon. There's maybe some talk about discussions being in person because they're relatively small, but other than that, it looks like I will be virtual for a couple more, who knows how long, but I will still be virtual.
Thank you for sharing that and about how you're trying to support your students when you can't actually see them in the same way that we typically do. So thank you. Ben?
Yeah. So yeah, it was definitely obviously a bigger interruption for everybody when the pandemic began. And at Christopher House, I think that we were expecting just kind of the shock of the shutdown to take a real toll on people's mental health initially. And surprisingly, we didn't really see that as much in the first few months. And I think, at least I experienced, and maybe a lot of others, that like maybe we were so busy before that, we were still in the first couple months, like recovering, and, that there's new stresses financially as well, but in other ways, but like that kind of, we were able to recover energy wise from that. And I think that's maybe why we didn't have as much concern coming from our students and from some of the parents initially. But as the time has gone on, especially, I think a lot of our students have reached their max at this point of, minimal social interaction and being at home with just their siblings and their parents, and financial stresses increasing as time goes on as well too. And yeah, my workload has increased a lot in the last few months. And it really feels to me like, especially some of those older elementary students they've reached their max point with being able to tolerate the e-learning and the remote learning. And yeah, and we saw a lot of our work like prior to the pandemic, it was really difficult to engage with parents. It was so hard to get parents in just for the minimum, to sign consent forms and things like that. And in theory, we were always, available for doing therapy with parents, but it was something that never really happened. And I think, a lot of it is because it's just really hard to add another thing to a busy schedule and to get in. And it wasn't for lack of desire or demand. And that's something that I've seen too. We're engaging parents at a much higher level, and also the kind of turnaround like we're able to have as people have adapted to the internet. They can sign consent forms and we could have a session today or tomorrow if I have the time in my schedule. And I can see how for adults, I imagine that teletherapy for adults is going to be the future. Personally, I see my therapist virtually, and I don't think I want to go back and do an office again. It's so convenient and comfortable in my house. So yeah, there's those kind of things as well too with the pandemic. And I do think, and I think that, yeah, like another thing too with the students that I have been seeing on site for the last 3 weeks, it's suddenly like meeting with somebody you don't live with in person is something really special. And you feel like you can make like a connection, and almost just like that is therapeutic in itself, of, being in a room with another adult who's interested in hearing what you have to say and talking to you, and, playing a game. It's still challenging with elementary students to talk for a long period of time about some topics. So there's still a certain amount of, playing games as well. But it's really different the way that I've been able to engage with younger students. And yeah, like parents are able to, like, I think I would imagine that a lot of the parents at Chris Ross would say they've grown a lot as parents during this time as well. Because there have been a lot of new challenges, and they've had to take on a lot of responsibilities they haven't had before. And I hope that they would also, that we've been able to support them in that process as well too, socially and emotionally. So yeah, I think I'm trying to think of any other examples, but yeah, it's really interesting. My just the way my workload has fluctuated throughout this year. Last spring, almost nobody was looking for therapy. Nothing continued on from in person, and nobody was reaching out. And the few that I tried to continue on in person just didn't happen. And so there were several months of just like minimal, and now it's been steadily increasing as time goes on. And I think people are just kind of adjusting and adapting to how things are now. Maybe some people were thinking, oh, some of the problems that we were dealing with before the pandemic, disappeared in some ways during the pandemic, and now new problems have started. So I have an entirely different caseload, it's really interesting. So, and I've also noticed too, as like we have after school on site, some of the students that were dealing with lots of struggles at home when I was doing virtual therapy with, when they come on site, a lot of those problems are disappearing. So it's just our context makes such a huge difference for what we're dealing with.
Thank you so much for sharing how it's impacting all the different folks that you're working with differently, based on age and other factors as well. So that was really helpful. Carla, how has this impacted your work?
So it's been impacted a lot. So mainly what Benjamin and Sarah were saying, like going virtually with clients. Also, clients used to be able to come to the office. Mainly, we've worked with just having them call in, but some clients did still come in the office. So we would do their intake there, assess them there. But there was at some point a lot of people thought like, okay, well, maybe we're gonna lose our jobs, like there's no clients anymore, like we can't meet productivity. And then like calls declined, there wasn't a lot of people calling, so there's like I had like 3 calls or like no call at all. So right now it has increased, and then people getting adjusted to Zoom, um getting consent forms signed. And there's still some people I who want in-person therapy, and we've been offering this, but very rarely, just because as as things started to open up. But we do that in a conference room where there's more space, And I tell clients, well, if you do want in person, that's limited availability. It's mainly going to be through Zoom because basically everyone's sharing that room. So that's how it has been an impact. And then like we have home visiting programs at our agency too. So it's those had to be virtually as well. And then just adapting to that and having clients adapt to that too. And then also working with people who do not have internet access or do not have a computer available, or some older persons that may not have a smartphone so they cannot download Zoom. So just working with that instead of like having them do the Zoom, just giving them a phone call and doing therapy in that way.
Thank
And then
you.
also now that more things have opened, we have like had clients come in to sign in consent forms. So if that's something they need to do, we've been adapting to that as well.
Great. Thank you for sharing that, Carla. All right, so now it's kind of unbelievable. We got here 2 questions, y'all. And look how much time that took. So we want to open it up for questions from our student audience, questions that you have for our panelists. So you can put them in the chat. Professor Rocha's on the YouTube, so I guess you could put it in the comments there. I don't really know how that works, but.
Or unmute your mic if you want to.
Yeah, you could do that too. And then if you want to.
I have a question. I guess my question is, like, now that you're in the field, what is it like? What was your first experience like? Are you like, wow, like I made it? Because it feels like a really long journey. I'm looking for the summer to take 4 classes, the fall 4 classes, and then the spring 3 classes. I work full time and I'm trying to get through volunteer hours still. So I need a little bit of like positive energy to keep me motivated, some words of wisdom from everyone that has made it to the other side and is still alive. And I'm like, how did you feel when you got there?
I can say something quick. You sound, I'm guessing you're a lot younger than me. So so I've been working, a bit longer, but so it's not like this is like a first job out for me. But I have to say, it gets better. It really, I did work and then, it sounds like your hectic schedule is pretty intense. And that's often the case with a lot of the people in school, working and then being at class until 10 o'clock. I think, it feels super weird at first, but it feels like this gift of time to have your evenings free, to not have like assignments or readings or things kind of lingering over your head all the time. And it really, for me, put me right, like kind of easily in the zone of other projects, like if it was like studying for the LSW or doing other kind of projects that I found it just easier because we got used to a pretty intense schedule, which it sounds like, Jacqueline, you also have. So I want to say hang in there, and then you get paid, right? A lot of social work school is like unpaid labor. And so that's a key difference. So that will also get better. So those are my quick thoughts. Hang in there, you're almost there.
I'm a little bit more recent grad in 2020, and my first year there, I was working full time. I have a son, a family, and going to school full time and doing an internship. So I think it was like 12 hours the first year, 16 hours the second. The second year, I closed my job. I quit that, so that was one less thing on the table. But it was intense for a while. But once you get over like the middle point, it just feels like it drags, but once it's done, it's done. That is it called senioritis? That is real. That is real. But once you come to the end and it's complete, it's just such a validating, amazing feeling to be done with that. And like Sarah said, you're going to find yourself like with so much time on your hands, and that's going to be the reward. You're going to be like, well, now, like, maybe I'll take up a new hobby, something else to do. And and yeah, so I just stick it out, talk to your peers, talk to your family, get your support. Your peers are there for you. And they're probably the biggest support because they just pat you on the back and say, come on, you can do this. So that's my advice.
We have our other panelists. Anything you want to add?
I wanted to add something. So I'm not necessarily in the field, but I definitely did make it out. And so I think to add on to Barbara, there may be some instances where you do have to negotiate some of the things that you can do, that you have time for, because when you go into practicum, it is time consuming. Then you still have your course load and stuff, right? But I would say to also just enjoy the time that you are at your practicum or at NEIU. Like, I've been gone for a couple of years, but I really do miss NEIU. I think it was one of my best educational experiences, maybe because I've just been like at institutions for a shorter amount of time. But honestly, the NEIU is like, you build friendships and you build networks. So definitely stay connected with folks even after you leave, and whether you're trying to go to grad school or enter your profession, do take time to like value things that you're learning along the way, because they will stick with you for a really long time.
Thank you so much. Other questions from our audience?
So I have a question, and obviously any of you all can answer if you'd like. I know one of the things that we always get asked as professors is, what am I going to get paid when I get out of here? What salary ranges have you seen out in the field, or what do you care to share in that regard? Because now you all are on the other side of that graduation point, right? What does that look like?
Well, I can say that regardless of like what level of degree you're graduating with, whether it's a BSW or an MSW, you're not going to make as much as we deserve. We definitely deserve to be making a lot more. But I mean, for me still, it was a big increase from what I had before school. So I started like in the mid 40s and I'm about up to 50,000 now, which again, for a master's in other fields is too low. But I've seen positions that pay less than that and wanting an MSW as well too, or an LCSW paying less than that as well too, which is unfortunate. But I would hope that with a master's you could come around 50 at least for starting out. But from what I've seen.
I see Casey nodding her head no, because we know how much folks pay in Chicago. Anybody else that would care to share?
I can mirror what Benjamin said. I saw most of the ranges starting about the mid 40s, and I moved to another position. And I think once you get into a company, if you can stay with that company, and if it's a good company and they treat their employees well, there's that opportunity to go up. So in 10 months, I moved up, and now I'm in the 50s. So it's just, and I saw a post I saw somebody say something once that said, don't tie yourself to a company, tie yourself to a cause. And I think that's important, but I think if your company treats you well and you really appreciate the vision and the mission of that company, it's also important to like stay there and work with it. If it's treating you well. And but if it's not, then that's not fair to yourself to stay in a place that doesn't feel well. But yeah, that's my experience.
I was going to add, I mean, this is there's a big range, right? Even in like my world is kind of like home visiting, like early childhood world, and they just did which I feel like is just like a super gendered also because it's like 99.9% women who work in this field. And they did like a salary analysis like throughout the state. Now, of course, it matters where you are in the state, right? If you're in Chicago or if you're downstate. But there's there's a lot of there's a discrepancy, you know, like all kinds. And so I was kind of with you, Benjamin. I was thinking maybe 50, but Casey's like, no, I don't know. You know, we hire bachelor's level, you know, upper 40s, and so I'm thinking, you know, more than that for masters. But social work is tricky. I also feel like it's more about your experience. Sorry, I shouldn't say this. You're a bunch of professors on here, but I feel like it's a lot more about experience sometimes than with your degree, depending on what you want to do. And even the LSW, unless you need it, like you might just wait and skip and save that money and get to the LCSW because that one has more weight to it too. So I guess I would say this. Money's tough, right? There's all kinds of variety there, but maybe look at other things that an organization can offer. If there's tuition reimbursement, you know, try to get to Benjamin and someone else's point. A few that's been hammered in now. It's like try to get someone else to pay for your graduate degrees or your doctorate. Like, so look at like tuition reimbursement, like what they can invest in you. Look at the time off. You know, so if they're not offering you the money that you all deserve, that we all deserve, look at some of the other things, the other benefits. Even like look at those 401ks, you know, like look at that stuff that they may offer that could offset some of the not getting what you deserve in the just monetarily. So that would be the only thing I can think of. Even if it's like the vibe you get and you don't know this oftentimes until you're there, but you know, work-life balance, and then and maybe if you're, you know, ask for a more flexible schedule so that you can do some kind of side gig. That's another thing as well. Like in my organization, a lot of people work Monday through Thursday, and then they could do something else. You know, like you know, 410s versus like the traditional kind of 8 hours. So anyway, those are just some thoughts that come to my mind.
One thing that my work provides that I was really grateful for is every hour, like when I started, every hour I work counts towards my licensure hours. And I also had supervision as well too. And there were times, I mean, it's complicated because my supervisor, like my boss, is not a social worker. And so it was always, you know, an external person they were paying for supervision. And there were times where I felt like I was going to have to say, all right, this, you know, like this person quit like 2 weeks ago, like you better find a new person because you promised me supervision. I never, you know, she always ended up, you know, coming through and finding a new person to contract and do supervision for us. But there were a couple times when I felt like I would have to like bring it up and demand that because that's what, you know, we were promised starting out. So yeah, that's a good thing. I mean, I haven't, you know, last spring is when I had enough hours to get my LCSW, and I haven't really done anything about it yet. But yeah, it's, if that's a goal that you have to get your LCSW, then definitely look for that, because yeah, some agencies don't offer supervision, or they don't even like your hours don't all count towards count towards that licensure. And for me, every working hour counted towards, so it went really quickly. But yeah, I know some other agencies like strictly are the hours you're doing therapy and things like that. I don't know.
But also that's saving you money, because if otherwise if you wanted to get your license and had to pay for that supervision outside, which so that's another good way to do it. Or maybe they'll invest in you if they want you to have that license and maybe pay for your exam. I don't know.
Right. I was going to add, make sure that these are some of the negotiating points, right? That when you're talking to employers, as you're trying to negotiate your contract with them, if they don't have someone in-house, see if they'd be willing to pay for someone then, because you would be then, you know, responsible for finding someone that can provide the supervision, but it may come at a cost. So you want to make sure that they may be willing, you know, if they're willing to pay for it, that they will. So something to negotiate.
And regardless if we're working towards our you know, licensure hours or whatever, like we all need supervision. So it's really important, period, like that should be provided. If they're doing a good job and being ethical, I think they need to provide that.
There are some companies too that will hire you with an MSW with the grounds that you get your LSW within 6 months, and then they'll pay for you to take that exam. And then the great part is that when you do have your LSW and your next goal is the LCSW, some of these companies will provide free CEUs for you so that you can do that continued education after you get it.
Right. We have 5 minutes left.
Oh, I was going to say one more thing too. Like, I think something that's important is actually like, we have this kind of cultural taboo with talking about money and our wages. And I think that does more hurt than help us. And so, you know, I mean, try to get comfortable talking about that with your coworkers. I know that like, yeah, my coworker and I just recently were talking about wages and making sure that we're being paid fairly. I mean, she's been here longer than me. And so, you know, I assumed what she might be making, but, you know, just making sure that you actually are, you know, earning what's fair. So.
I was going to say, and that's also important for gender gap differences in terms of pay.
For sure. Yeah.
Can I say something? Thank you for talking about this, because I think this part of it has always been a thing for me. You know, we always hear people say, oh, social workers don't get paid enough. And, you know, it's just been like this taboo thing, just like Benjamin mentioned. But it's true, Sarah. Sometimes we lose perspective on looking at the entire package and what, you know, what comes with, you know, not just the pay, but like for me, those things are important because I have kids, right? Insurance is important, 401k is important, all of those things. But it's something that we're even advocating for in a campaign that I'm, you know, currently working in as part of my internship in the MSW program. It's something that we're always talking about, social workers, you know, how we should get paid more and how we should get paid what we deserve and get a livable wage. So I just want to let you guys know that, because there are really amazing groups out there advocating for this very thing. So I don't know, I'm just hoping that we see some changes in this department, because we definitely deserve it. You know, we definitely deserve it for sure. So thank you.
Well, sorry. Well, one last thing. Something that is a development in my agency is that the elementary school teachers they voted to unionize with the Chicago Teachers Union, even though we're a charter school. Yeah, so it's very exciting. But one of the challenges I see in not-for-profit agencies is that we have so many different roles, and even when it's trying to like unionize, it's really tricky because we can't all be represented by the same union. You know, so it makes it very challenging. You know, like that's something we'd like to see for everybody in the agency, but it's not that simple.
Thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and read the last of our YouTube live feed comments. So Mary Reynolds says, sweatpants for life. We will find a way to modify the dress code. Yes. And then she says, yes, regarding opportunities that have arisen, we are social workers. We look for strength no matter what. Si se puede. Students are amazing. NEIU students are amazing and will support each other no matter what. They will always support one another to get across the finish line. Use your community. And then Aeon Flux says, hi, Professor Davidson, it's Curtis.
Thank you. We have such amazing students, former students, current students. It's just so wonderful to see. It's getting a little emotional even thinking about that. You all are so wonderful, and I just we cannot express our gratitude enough for you coming and sharing your time with us on this Friday night to help our social work students as they enter the fields. We have so many students graduating in a time of such uncertainty, and I really think that your words really matter to them. So thank you so much for sharing your night with us. I'm gonna wrap us up now and Thank you all for coming. This was recorded, so if you came and some of your fellow students couldn't come, encourage them to watch it because I think it was really important and useful and meaningful. And thank you to my co-facilitators and all of our panelists. You were wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Northeastern fam. This was wonderful. Thank you.